Greetings and salutations, my fellow sovereigns. This is the Vocational Science of Freedom Saturday Night Civics and Sovereignty class, and tonight we'll be continuing our reading of the book called TheGreatTaking, and this will be an analysis and deep dive into this book. And we left off at Chapter 5, Collateral Management, which will be page 55 of the PDF and page 23 in the actual book. And again, this is the reading of the book named TheGreatTaking by David Webb, and it was put out in 2023. People should either be caressed or crushed. If you do them minor damage, they will get their revenge. But if you cripple them, there is nothing they can do. If you need to injure someone, do it in such a way that you do not have to fear their vengeance. Niccolo Machiavelli. Associated with the imperative and certain secure creditors must be given legal certainty to client assets globally, without exception, is the further assurance of near instantaneous cross-border mobility of legal control of such collateral. That's a short way of saying, or a very long-winded way of saying, that the attorney is going to control everything, whether you like it or not. Derivatives are financial contracts on everything imaginable, and even unimaginable for most of us. They may be modeled on real things, but are not the real things themselves. They are untethered from physical reality, but can be used to take real things as collateral. As we will see, the objective is to utilize all securities as collateral, and hence to have the real practical means to take all securities as collateral. Comprehensive quote-unquote collateral management systems have been implemented, which assure the transport of all securities cross-border through the mandated linkages of CSDs to ICSDs and onto the CCPs. All of those acronyms were covered in earlier readings, by the way, where the risk of the entire derivatives complex is concentrated. The supposed quote-unquote demand for this enormous undertaking is not being driven by true market forces, but by regulatory contrivance. A report published in 2013 by the Committee on the Global Financial System at the Bank of International Settlements, entitled Asset Encumbrance, Financial Reform and the Demand for Collateral Assets, states the following. Regulatory reforms and the shift towards central clearing of derivatives transactions will also add to the demand for collateral assets. But there is no evidence or expectation of any lasting or widespread scarcity of such assets in global financial markets. Another report by the same committee entitled Developments in Collateral Management Services states on page 16, some changes that may raise demand for collateral have not been phased in yet. Since jurisdictions operate on different timelines for mandatory central clearing and margin requirements for non-centrally cleared trades, multiple market participants noted that implementation of mandatory clearing requirements has not yet advanced to the point where those market participants are experiencing shortfalls in collateral readily available to pledge. And I put a little note in here simply stating that in short means that we have not burst this bubble yet. And furthermore, on page I, motivated by expected increase in demand for collateral stemming from regulatory changes, whatever the attorney wants, collateral management service providers are evolving their service offerings in an effort to improve efficiencies and enable market participants to meet collateral demands with existing and available securities. Thus, while there was no evidence of scarcity of collateral and market participants were not experiencing shortfalls, quote, demand for collateral assets, close quote, was being artificially created and intensified by regulatory fiat. Again, this is the attorney taking the world. It was absolutely not market-driven. This was designed and deliberately executed to move control of collateral to the largest secured creditors behind the derivatives complex. This is the subterfuge, the endgame of it all. On its pages 8 through 11, the cited report discloses the objectives of these collateral management systems, providing further confirmation that it is the linking of the CSDs and ICSDs which provides cross-border mobility of collateral from the collateral giver to the collateral taker. Yes, they really explicitly used those terms. First, many of the largest custodians have implemented or have plans to implement a custodial platform that is global in nature. Let me pause here for a minute. Explain what that means. What is a custodian? It's someone who is managing somebody else's assets or managing somebody else's estate. Another way of putting it would be a ward and a guardian. That's one other way of putting it. But a custodian is supposed to be someone who's managing something that someone else owns. They have custody of it, but they don't own it. So everything that you've ever registered has a custodian. And what you're doing, or what they're doing, actually, from the standpoint of a custodial platform that is global in nature, this is what they want to have across all nations. They want to make sure that the implementation of Roman civil law, this idea of where they register something and then they get to control it, and also the aspect of them administering all of our estates from birth to death through Roman civil law, is a system that is global in nature. Once they get this global system completely in place, from altering all of the country's laws via the attorney and all of the state laws here in America, which they've already done through the Commission on Uniform State Laws, they will have everything in place that they need to steal everything. You'll never see it. You'll never be considered a secured creditor from the standpoint of these international banks, and everything will be taken so that they can continue to play their little derivatives market. Now, the only way that this stops is if we claim our estates and take everything back from them, so that they do not have the potential to be a custodian of anything, or a guardian of anything, or a special administrator of anything, because they were never meant to be any of those things, particularly not in regards to any sovereign American. If other countries want to follow in the footsteps of Roman civil law and not have a constitutional republic, that's up to those people. But here in America, it's entirely different. We were never supposed to be in a situation where anything, corporation, government, or otherwise, was ever to have any constant administration or control over us. So, to continue, this will be a single system, or set of connected systems that allows a customer a single view of all of its available collateral held by the custodian regardless of location. The desired end goal of all these efforts is to get as close as possible to a single view of all available securities regardless of where they are held in real time. This aggregation of supply information is a necessary prerequisite for the efficient deployment of available securities to meet collateral obligations. Meaning, it doesn't really matter where they are in the world. Once they decide to collapse something and grab the collateral, you could be in America and they could be in Japan and they could just grab it. That's more or less what they're setting up. To continue, ICSDs enable their participants to obtain aggregate views on the entirety of the ladder sync securities holdings held with the ICSD, including securities held by ICSD participants via link arrangements. The report illustrates the relationship between the ICSD and its participants in a diagram, which is included below in figure 5.1 on page 27. The text continues. Diagram 5 illustrates the services available at ICSDs, whereby a customer, collateral giver, is a participant in the ICSD and holds its securities in the ICSD, including via link arrangements between the ICSD and local CSDs. The ICSD, as CMSP, Collateral Management Service Provider, having established direct or indirect, i.e. via a custodian participating in the local CSD, links with local CSDs, has information on and can access the entirety of a participant's securities for collateral management purposes. That's a very long-winded way of saying we're going to be able to shuffle the coconuts any which way we want, as fast as we want, in a systems setup that we control, and you will never know where it is. That's more or less what that just said. To continue, at this point, the report clarifies in a footnote, the entirety of a participant's securities includes the participant securities that were issued and are held at the ICSD and the participant securities that were issued and are held via ICSD link arrangements at a linked CSD. The report then turns to the role of the quote-unquote collateral takers. The collateral takers are also participants in the ICSD. Both the collateral giver and the collateral takers provide information to the ICSD as CMSP regarding collateral obligations. With this information, the ICSD runs its optimization process and may automatically generate collateral allocation instructions for the collateral giver/takers based on the results. The ICSD will also process the movement of securities on the books of the ICSD, since counterparties included in the optimization and allocation process are participants in the ICSD. If the collateral giver does not have sufficient securities in the ICSD environment, it can source collateral by transferring securities from its own account at the linked CSD to its securities account in the ICSD with a free of payment settlement occurring in the linked CSD. That's a long-winded way of saying, again, we're going to transfer this back and forth through these different creations of ours, and we'll be able to take it from one to the other at any time we want to. And you agreed to all this when you registered your security with us, more or less. Not to say that any aspect of an unlawful contract is able to be upheld. It's not what I'm saying. But when they're writing their own law, as far as all this aspect of the law march is concerned, and then you enter into the contract with it and they state, yes, this is the law that you're agreeing to, well, then you've agreed to the law too. So, to continue. No, the transferal of the people's assets is to be made free of payment. They meant not just free mobility of collateral, but quite literally free collateral. How nice. Through collateral transformation, the objective is to utilize all securities as collateral. As supply and demand dynamics for collateral continue to evolve, it is possible that efforts to make more efficient use of existing collateral will not be sufficient to fully satisfy individual obligations. Right, so as our bubble gets bigger and bigger and is ready to pop, watch out, is what that just said. If that is the case, some market participants may need to exchange available but ineligible securities for other securities that meet eligibility criteria in order to fulfill their collateral obligations. Undertaking transactions to achieve this outcome has been defined as quote-unquote collateral transformation. Right, we're just going to transform it in from one to the other. Collateral transformation is simply the encumbrance of any and all types of client assets under swap contracts, which end up in the derivatives complex. This is done without the knowledge of the clients, who are led to believe that they safely owned these securities, and serves no beneficial purpose whatsoever for these clients. That's just another way of saying that you don't own what you think you own. And they will play with it in their open air casinos, however they feel like playing with it. And then when you come to collect it, if they've gone bankrupt because they made some bad bets, too bad. You don't get your collateral or your security anymore. You're out. It's more or less what that just said. To continue. And here it is. Here is the automated market-wide sweeping of collateral to CCPs and central banks in a time of market stress. In times of market stress, rapid deployment of available securities may be crucial in mitigating systemic issues. Right, systemic as in the whole entire system crashing. For instance, with better visibility of available securities and better access to them, firms may be better positioned to rapidly deploy securities to meet margin needs at CCPs in times of increased market volatility, or to pledge to central banks in emergency situations to gain increased access to the lender of last resort. Funny how they call central banks the lender of last resort. Well, they're really the lender of first resort because that's where all the money comes from to begin with. It's all ledger entry, back and forth. To continue, the automation and standardization of many operations related to collateral management on a market-wide basis may enable a market participant to manage increasingly complex and rapid collateral demands. And so, as we have seen here irrefutably, the objective is to utilize all securities as collateral and hence to have the real practical means to take all securities as collateral. And this is part and parcel of the flowchart to try to explain what on earth they're actually doing here. So supply, collateral giver, single firm, an ICSD participant, and then CSD London, CSD New York, International Central Securities Depository, that's this ICSD, this creature, aggregator and optimizer, and then the demand, the collateral takers. So repo counterparties, securities, lending counterparties, bilateral derivatives counterparties for other trading activities, CCPs for margin requirements, etc. So this all goes in Seoul branch, equities desk, London home derivatives desk, New York branch, fixed income desk. These are all giving directly into this international central securities depository. So to explain this, figure 5I, multiple jurisdictions, ICSD as collateral management service provider with links to other CSDs, adapted from diagram 5 in 19. Explanations provided in the original link, the ICSD has direct or indirect links with other CSDs, securities held by ICSD participants via these link arrangements are included in the respective collateral pool of the ICSD participant and available to the ICSD as CMSP. So 1, equal the collateral giver and the collateral taker send notification to the ICSD regarding their tri-party transactions. 2, the ICSD will determine the optimal use of available securities and generate the underlying collateral allocation instructions. Collateral transfer is settled on the books of the ICSD. So comprehensive collateral management systems have been implemented which assure the transport of all securities cross-border through the mandated linkage of CSD to ICSDs to the CCPs, where the risk of the derivatives complex is concentrated. Right. Concentrated in where they want it to be and how they can control it. And on to the anointed secured creditors, which will take the collateral when the CCPs fail, having assured for themselves that their taking of assets cannot be legally challenged. Inevitably, following the everything bubble will be the everything crash. Once prices of essentially everything crash in all financial firms rapidly become insolvent, these collateral management systems will automatically sweep all collateral to the central clearing counterparties, the CCPs, and central banks. Right. This is the attorney stealing everything through back doors. The trap into which all nations have been herded is ready and waiting to be sprung. There will be an epic endpoint to the decades of seemingly out-of-control financialization, which served no beneficial purpose for humanity, but the devastating effects of which are apparent even now. It has been a deliberate strategy executed over decades. This was the purpose of inflating the global bubble entirely out of proportion with any real-world thing or activity, which must end in disaster for so many, with no pockets of resilience allowed to remain in any country. So what this is going to do, what he just eloquently stated, was that this last final crash will push everyone into the New World Order, whether they like it or not. That is essentially what they are doing. And with that, I will make a note here to come back. Safe harbor from whom and from what? We will return back to this point next we start up. And for now, unless there's anybody that has any questions for chat, I know we had a few technical difficulties this evening. My apologies for that. But I would like everybody to actually read the totality of this book, whether they have seen some of this or all of it. Everybody should honestly take the time to understand what is coming. This is not pie in the sky conspiracy theory. This is already in place. And everything is in place to take everything. The bail-in legislation has already been put in. That was, I believe, with the Dodd-Frank Act. It got slipped in there, where basically all of your deposits at any bank, and I'm talking about your actual money, if you consider it money, your Federal Reserve note ledger sheet, let's put it that way. They can take that anytime they want to bail in for themselves, to protect themselves from bankruptcy. After the last time when the housing bubble exploded everything, they took a look at it and said, ooh, we're overexposed. We need to be able to save ourselves when we need to, because I guess enough of them didn't have their silver parachutes. And so what's going to happen this time is that everything is going to be taken totally and globally. Now, my feeling about all of this is that when they pull this trigger, they're not going to get the submission from the totality of the planet like they expect. I think what they're going to get, as we're now witnessing in France right now at the moment, and as is starting back up in Canada, I believe, are mass civil unrest. The farmers doing what they're doing, shutting down of roads, even attacking infrastructure on mass scale, and destroying of banks, destroying of any symbol of what caused this problem, will all be attacked at once. That's what I feel will happen. And they're not going to be able to get it under control. They will go into hiding with the rest of their paper assets and whatever gold and silver that they've stolen and hoarded over the years. But they'll probably be hunted down in their bunkers, and there won't be any place for them to hide anymore. And the rest of us will get on with our daily lives and fix our republic. And we'll all learn. But the trick is, when something like this happens, when you are at the cusp of the failure of an entire empire, and this one being a banking empire, you have to be diligent in your preparations. So everyone out there that has yet to start to learn how to garden, has yet to start to learn how to be self-sufficient, time is now. So yeah, like how farmers are backing up manure spreaders up to the bank's windows, smashing them out, and turning on the poop cannon. Yes, exactly. That's precisely the minimum of what's going to happen. I see a lot of other things going down as well. I don't want to speculate the totality of what I see coming, but it's not going to be good unless you're prepared for it. If you're in a community and you have people that are self-reliant, you can trust them, you're all armed, that's different. And, get stockpiles going, but learn how to be self-sufficient, because this whole system is dependent upon these central banks and this fiat stupidity. So once that ends, people are actually just going to be trading for things. I mean, gold and silver obviously still be valuable, and people should work on their economies locally to have gold and silver traded for their goods as well. So, okay, so with that, we're coming up on an hour. And so this was the Vocational Science of Freedom Saturday night civics and sovereignty class. It's makeup on a Wednesday. I will also continue this reading from the book, TheGreatTaking. And again, if you need the link, it'll be in the show notes for the class. And if you'd like to join the Vocational Science of Freedom Gilded server, you can do so at gilded.gg/VSOF. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And until next time, stay safe and stay sovereign.